our own GDP in our country dramatically increased. So it really did usher in prosperity and peace overall. And there'll be a vacuum if the U.S. steps back. That's the argument against this, and that Russia and China and other regimes would fill that void.
Glad you've written about it. And frankly, I'm going to talk about it right now with my next guest. But meantime, thank you, Dan DeLuce, for that. I'm joined right now by Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts. Congressman, you just heard Dan lay out a pretty good reasons for which there should be concern about the U.S. going it alone and pursuing an isolationist stance. How do you feel about it?
Good to be back, Alex. He's 100% right. And I see this firsthand in Congress. The way that our congressional committees work is the upper dais. When you sit higher up in the committees, you're more senior. When you're lower down in the dais, you're more junior. And what I see in these committee hearings is that those Republican members who are high up in the dais, who have been in Congress for a couple decades, are more traditional Reagan Republicans, right? They have a more hawkish view of American foreign policy and are more comfortable with intervention. The lower dais Republicans are just spewing MAGA talking points. And what's happened over the last couple of years is it's become a MAGA-dominated conference in the House and increasingly in the Senate as well. And you know who wins here? Xi Jinping. I have talked to ambassadors throughout the Indo-Pacific, throughout Europe, and one thing is very clear. Xi Jinping and his junior partner, Vladimir Putin, are hoping that America retrenches, that we make the mistakes of the 1930s, because they will fill the vacuum, and they will take away the Pax Americana that has allowed peace and prosperity to spread over the course of the last 70 years, and replace it with a might makes right regime.
Congressman, everything you've just said, everything we heard from Dan DeLuce, I'm curious, what are the Republicans that support this missing? Or are they just blindly following Donald Trump? Do they not study history?
Ironically, I think they are tapping into a sentiment that grew since 2003 in the Iraq War. And I say ironically because there was a Republican president who lied to the American public about weapons of mass destruction and really started a war of choice that did not serve American interests or largely represent American values. In my opinion, that began to unravel broad bipartisan consensus around America's role in the world. And it has been Donald Trump who has tapped into that and turned it towards these self-defeating ends. Now, I still think, though, in fact, I know that in the Congress of today, there is a majority behind support for Ukraine, for Taiwan, for Israel, this national security package, passed the Senate 70-30, and it has the votes in the House, Alex. It would pass, probably 300-plus votes in the House if Speaker Johnson put it on the floor. And Speaker Johnson has to decide what he wants his legacy to be. Does he want to go out these next few months as being Donald Trump's subservient campaign manager, or does he want to actually serve as the Speaker of the House in a moment of crisis and meet the moral moment that we are in?
And yet, contradicting what you're saying there is one person, we'll play a soundbite right now from Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who said this morning she's opposed to this bill because of Biden's, quote, failed mission in Ukraine. Listen to this.
They want to say that Republicans are pro-Putin and pro-Russia, when nothing could be further from the truth. What we really are is pro-America, our citizens, and our national security. The one thing that you did not hear Jake Sullivan or Joe Biden say today, or really ever, is defining our mission in Ukraine. They have yet to define that mission. They have yet to set the strategy, and they have yet to articulate how are we going to get out of this situation. If we had the answer, we'd be talking about it, and perhaps there would be more support for it.
She says Biden's top priority should be U.S.-Mexico border. What's your response to all that?
Alex, there's a psychological term for this. It's called confabulation. It's when people make things up to justify a belief that they have already committed themselves to. What's happened here is Donald Trump has put the Republican Party in a position where they have to be against border security because he wants to campaign on the border, not govern on it, and where they have to be against Ukraine because he's sympathetic to Vladimir Putin. And now they're trying to confabulate. They're trying to figure out every which way to justify the fact that they are in favor of two disastrous policies. Let me be very clear about what success could look like for Ukraine. A defensible border on their east, access to the Black Sea so that they have the exports that they need to sustain their economy, and accession to the European Union on the near-term horizon. We know an end game here. We know that the Ukrainians have the willpower to win, and they just need the firepower. And if Ronald Reagan could hear Nancy Mace right now, he'd be spinning in his grave, because she is undoing the victory of the Cold War.
This was a great conversation, and I want to thank you. I'm of the belief that we learn something new every day. Confabulation, that is a new word for me, and I'm going to have plenty of opportunity to use it, my friend. Thank you so much. Meantime, we have new details about the death of a non-binary teenager, what police are learning from the school's surveillance video.
The Grand Cherokee is the most awarded SUV ever. And because of that, it means even more when you can keep a Grand Cherokee in the family.
It's yours now.
While still looking forward to the road ahead.
During the Jeep President's Day sales event, get the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee starting at $38,290 MSRP.
With Nurtec ODT, I can treat a migraine